Welcome to our Wellness Wednesday. Today we have Stacie Power, and she is an attorney at law as well as an expert on real estate. She has two different businesses, which she'll share a little bit more about, but she's here to share her expertise to help guide you through these different times that we're going through and the ever-changing laws pertaining real estate leases and even bankruptcy. So, Stacie, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself and all that?
Sure. This is my first time going live on Facebook in any capacity. So if you're tuning in from my page, I said this morning, you probably think something might be wrong, but we're not. We're here. So first of all, I want to say thank you for having me, Candy, and forcing me outside of my comfort zone to connect with our community. I also want to say congratulations to anyone who is watching this because you've made it through some crazy and uncertainty. And if you're like me, uncertainties for a long time has been a scary bad thing. But I'm really trying to remember when I was a little kid and I used to get excited about the unknown. So as Candy mentioned, I am an attorney here in Chico and the CEO of Power Law PC. We specialize in business and real estate law, but we also help people with a number of other issues. And then I'm also the sponsoring broker of Power West Properties. And we have full service real estate and property management services in Chico, Santa Cruz, and Southern California. So that is a little bit about me and what we do. And I welcome the opportunity to come talk to people today because we're getting quite a bit of buzz from this COVID-19 situation that's raising some concerns for a lot of people. So I can just jump right into what one of those is. One of the things that we get a lot of people calling about, and we're dealing with it on the property management side as well as on the law side, is there's a lot of misinformation about people being told that they don't have to pay mortgages, that they don't have to pay rent, and that it is part of the state mandate that rent is not due or that mortgage isn't due. So we want to make clarification for the people that are getting mixed messages and understand that that's actually not what is going on. What instead is going on is that under the current situation, the state and the courts have stopped landlords from filing unlawful detainers or eviction proceedings. And they've also stopped the banks from moving forward with foreclosure just during the time while these shelter-in-place orders are in effect. So a lot of people are calling and saying, well, my landlord's telling me that I'm going to owe this rent regardless. And they're saying that they can kick me out when the shelter-in-place orders are lifted. And the reality is that is true. And we want to make sure that everyone understands that the contractual obligations that are created by your leases and your mortgages, those can't be forcefully waived at this point by the state shelter in place orders. They're just giving a little bit of relief in regards to actual evictions and foreclosures. So if you find yourself in that situation, it's probably the best advice is to not take the position with your landlord that you have a right to not pay rent, but instead explain your hardship to those, to your landlords, whether it's your office or your residential landlord. Explain what your hardship is, provide them with documentation, and basically we all just have to sort of wait and see what the actual impact of these shelter in place orders will be. Maybe, Butte County, we're back and starting to return to work. So maybe it's not going to be a problem, but for some people, even just a month or two without income, they might not ever be able to recap that. Same on business leases. It's the same thing. Unfortunately, there's some advisory groups telling people that they should kind of strong arm their landlords and saying, well, the landlord isn't going to want vacancy expense, so they're not going to kick you out. I definitely would not hedge your bets on that because your landlords for your businesses are business owners themselves, and they have mortgages and they have expenses. And it would be a huge mistake to assume that you're going to be able to strong arm that kind of relief. The third part of that is if you yourself are a landlord and or whether it's for a commercial property or a residential property, we understand that there's a lot of landlords. We are blessed with the owners that we manage properties for being very willing to accommodate some of these hardships and try to give rent. Sorry about that. My phone interrupted. Sorry, guys, I lost you here. We've been trying to, did you lose me?
No, you're still there.
Okay. We've been trying to advise our owners that we understand them wanting to give accommodations to their tenants, and we definitely appreciate that. But our recommendation is to kind of wait you can certainly tell your tenants, we intend to try to work with you to the best of our ability, but we are going to wait until we have a little more certainty about what that looks like, and wait for you yourself as a landlord to make any decisions about that until you have an idea of what you're going to be able to accommodate and what you can't. So that's kind of what we are advising the landlords and the owners in that situation. The most important thing for anybody that's dealing with these real property mortgage issues or rent issues is to make sure that you're working with good information and not making assumptions that that your landlords have to waive your rent or your mortgage company has to defer your mortgage payments. Make sure you have the right information and try to make a plan, even though we know that planning is really difficult when you don't have all the variables answered for you. So that's something that you just have to do the best that you can to make a plan, but be careful in damaging or making relationships with your landlords or with your tenants irreparable based on misinformation. And so that's something that
right now emotions are high, so it's important to not act from emotion when it comes to your landlords and your tenants, and to make sure that being wise about your communication.
Right. And this is a time when people get creative. So maybe you've had that extra storeroom in your office that you haven't used before. And maybe this is the time, guess what? And even COVID-19, taxes are still a thing. Put an ad out asking if there's a tax preparer that wants to use that little corner in your office. I'm sure your landlords would be more than happy to allow you to do a temporary sublet so that you can pay the rent. But it's really about just trying to be creative and try to come up with as many options as you can for survival. And if you get yourself in a situation, something we're seeing a lot of right now is you've got businesses that are new and getting ready to start, and maybe they've got new leases that start in April or May. And these are leases for businesses that cannot open and cannot operate. If it's a small gym or a yoga studio or a salon, what happens when you have this lease that says you have to operate this business and you have to operate as a term of your lease, but the shelter in place orders say that you can't? That's when you might want to consider coming to talk to myself or another attorney and looking at the lease, because the landlord would probably take the position that that's not their fault and you're contractually bound to pay those rents. But there's some possibilities. There's different theories of relief. If it's impossible or impractical for you to be able to fulfill the terms of that lease, it's probably a good idea to think about trying to negotiate out of that lease or change the terms or do some sort of an abatement agreement that that can allow there to be some compromise. But that's something that's happening a lot. Chico especially is a community that's very nurturing to small businesses. So there's new businesses opening up everywhere, and there's new developments opening up and space. And so people are signing leases and starting a business that they can't open. And if that's a situation that people find themselves in, they should certainly, again, not react emotionally and take a look at the document and the contract and see what their options are. So that's good.
Find out more information.
Yes, definitely. Another topic that is while we certainly are trying to encourage everyone to stay strong, stay positive, be creative, try to come up with some contingency plans for survival through this rather difficult situation. There's some people who are finding themselves posed with the question, what if I don't make it? What if financially I can't bounce back from this in the way that I thought, or maybe prior to all of this, you were already struggling. So a lot of people are starting to make inquiries about bankruptcy. And bankruptcy for some people can be inevitable because for circumstances that might be completely out of your control, like a mandatory shutdown in a pandemic situation. There's just the inability to self manage whatever this debt that's hanging over you. Bill collectors are really good at their jobs, and it's a pretty emotionally sterile industry. They want their money because it's due, and they're not really interested why you're not paying. They just want you to pay. So some people are finding it where they're saying, well, what happens even if I can reopen my business in a month or two? Can I afford to? Because now I have these arrears that I can't pay, and that I would need an increase or almost double or triple my regular income for me to be able to catch up. So sometimes bankruptcy might be an option that people want to consider, but a lot of people are afraid of it. They're afraid of it because there's a stigma attached to it. And you shouldn't. It's a federal code that's used by people all over the country, and it's there for a reason. They do have many protections built in so that people can't abuse it. So it's really a tool or a resource that's there for people who certainly need it. There's a lot of myths about bankruptcy, that if you file bankruptcy, you'll never have credit again. You'll lose your house, you'll lose your car, you'll lose your business. You have to give all your clothes. That's not the case. There's a couple different options in bankruptcy. One being Chapter 13, where it's more of a court structured repayment plan. You can definitely pay your bills. You just need some help on adjusting those payments to get it done over a period of time. Or maybe you look at your 5-year plan and you realize there's no way in 5 years I'm ever going to be able to do this. And you do have to go with a Chapter 7, which would be a full bankruptcy. So there's a lot of questions that come up for people that they want to know if it's an option. They want to find out about the implication of their credit on their credit. And I would encourage anyone who's had questions about that not to go get those answers from the law firm of Google and Google, because you will find every answer to, 20 answers to the same questions, and it's very confusing. Take advantage of consultations with bankruptcy attorneys. We do free consultations for our clients or prospective clients, and we can just go through it and say, is this even an option for you? Maybe your credit score is super important, but we tend to see that people who are considering bankruptcy are not people with 750 credit scores to begin with, because you're late one time on a bill, there goes your credit score. So, maybe your concern is that your debt is primarily taxes and student loans. Well, you'll go on the internet and you'll read that taxes are never dischargeable and student loans are never dischargeable, but that's not the case. There are certain circumstances where they can be discharged, or even the repayment restructured through the bankruptcy court. So,
and even having a consultation and bringing those kinds of questions bring a huge sense of relief, even knowing that bankruptcy isn't the best option, or knowing, what it all entails. So I think it's great that you're, debunking some of these myths, but I'm sure there's a lot more that in a consultation you can get in a lot more detail and reassure people about whichever decision they go with.
Right. And sometimes people come in and they think that bankruptcy is inevitable. They've tried to evaluate their finances, and they've tried to, they kind of feel like the sky is falling. The creditors are calling. Everyone's telling me, I don't care if your kids need diapers, you better pay this credit card bill right now. And so some people think that it is inevitable, but once we're able to sit down and really look at it, I would be happy to send you out the door with a plan or some tools to avoid bankruptcy so that you can come back and use us because you need it for, a new business you're starting or whatever the case is. So sometimes there is, it might feel like bankruptcy is an absolute inevitability, but it really isn't because it's just a matter of, some ideas of working with creditors and things like that. Similarly with the mortgages, you might not have to file a bankruptcy because you find yourself in foreclosure at the end of all of this because your lender said, hey, we're going to go ahead and defer or forbear your mortgage payment. And at the end of all this, we'll talk about workout options only to tell you that there are none. We don't know if that's going to happen, but we don't know that it's not. And by contract, at the end of the forbearance, you have to pay back everything that was that your payments that were temporarily waived. So there might be other options you hadn't considered, loan modifications, those kind of things. So it's really kind of indicative of the situation. We do bankruptcies when there's not COVID-19, but this is a really important time for everyone to be creative and to explore all of your options, and don't be afraid to reach out to resources like attorneys and accountants and massage therapists and the different people that help us, and find out, this is a time when you say, I might need a little extra help trying to put together the plan and the answers. It does not hurt. I'm not scary when we come in here. We're very casual. We even have wine if you need a little help relaxing. Um, it's very low pressure and no obligation. And we're really just here to give information, because for us to be great counsel to people, we have to be great counsel to people who don't need us. So,
information is, I mean, it's key. A lot of the stress, uncertainty comes from lack of information, the lack of knowing what your options are, the fear of, whatever you're making up in your head or whatever, Google tells you. So coming in and having someone who knows what they're talking about and can sift through all of that. When I go onto Google, there's so much information and it's hard to know what's reliable. So
right.
having someone that this is your job, that you keep up on that, and I don't really want to read those laws as they're changing as frequently as they are right now. So to be able to come in and communicate with you, and that's what you do all day.
Right. And one of the comments from Kelly is that, and Kelly, your situation is 100% of what's going on. I did the same thing. I contacted not knowing what was going on with the mortgage. I called the mortgage company and said, what are the options? And they were so nice and said, you know what, don't worry about it. You don't need to pay your mortgage for 3 months. And I said, oh, okay, that would be helpful. They'll just tack it on to the end of the loan. And then I got this cute letter in the mail that said, you don't have a payment due for 3 months, but by the way, your payment in month 4 is 4 months worth of mortgage. And of course, I'm sure everyone has the same reaction. Well, if I can't afford it month by month, how am I going to afford 4 times that 4 months from now? And so even though they're saying that they may very well review you for a deferment, which is taking those 3 months of payments that you didn't make and tacking them on to a balloon payment at the end, that could be an option. They could do a repayment plan where they spread out those 3 months over 12. So you're paying a little extra to pay it back. Or they could tell you, well, I'm not going to do either of those things for you. You have to apply for a loan modification, which is an extremely laborious process, and it can affect your credit and your ability to refi. It's not a foreclosure by any stretch of the imagination, but it still has a pretty severe impact. Or they can tell you just to pound sand altogether and get ready, get their hands rubbing together because they're coming after your house. And so that is where the uncertainty comes from, because if you're a homeowner and you're saying, I definitely am feeling these shelter in place orders, I'm definitely feeling the burn in my business, I'm depleting my savings, and your inclination is to want to try to take advantage of those programs because you still want that safety pad that allows you to still eat if you don't have income coming in for months at a time or whatever. So it is a difficult decision to make when you don't have an absolute answer to the question, well, what's going to happen at the end of the forbearance? Are you sure you're going to be able to give me some sort of modification? And because nobody has done this before, nobody knows the answer to that. So that's why it's, maybe you want to take advantage of that forbearance in the event that they can do something for you, but then take your mortgage payments to the extent you're able to and set them aside, and add that to your savings. And then if they do offer some kind of relief in the sense of tagging it on to the end of your loan or doing something that won't affect you in a huge negative way, then you will have been able to get the benefit of that. But in the event that they tell you, no, we're not going to help you, you still have the money there to be able to, keep your house and not find yourself in foreclosure.
Yeah, that's I didn't know about all of those options, and just talking with friends and the different things they're going through, and also the different types of loans that you have on your house. I'm grateful I have an SBA loan on my building that I just purchased for my business, and so I was able to defer that and tack the payments onto the end. So it went from a 25-year loan to a 25-and-a-half-year loan.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different options out there, and not all of them are good ones.
Right. And you could take advantage. I mean, we've had people calling, car loan places are quick to try to give you a couple months relief on your payments. There's a lot of different things you can do to try to be creative in, it's really going through. This is the time where the people who keep their budget in their head are probably wishing they had it on paper, but you can really go through your budget and look at the income side. Where can I increase, maximize, add to the income that you're getting? Everybody, we joke around, is everybody's really working their side hustles right now. So it's Pampered Chef and Arbonne and Origami Al and doTERRA and all of these things. You're seeing people leaning into some of the fun side income. It's trying to maximize that side and then trying to also look at your expenses. And obviously we're all, eyelash free and gray hair ridden and those kind of expenses that we're able to cut by involuntarily. But there's probably other ways you could cut expenses or go to your creditors and see if they're willing to work with you. It's really the best advice that I can give to my clients, and that I have to tell myself every day, is that no one can tell you what this looks like in the future, because no one that's breathing on the earth has done this before. So the best thing that you can do is just try to have a couple different plans and ideas in place, and again, take advantage of the resources of people that you can ask questions and get good information, because the bad information and the stuff you see on the internet is the stuff that'll start to really get people afraid, and it gets the anxiety running high, and then you get this kind of sense of paralysis where you're not making good decisions or any decisions at all. So
and right now, please take advantage. We have the comment section below that you can actually post questions, and Stacie can answer them. So if you're even watching the replay of this, you can post questions and we'll come back and Stacie will answer them and give that contact. So feel free to type in any questions you might have, and she's available right now and afterwards to answer them for you.
Great, thank you. And I will figure out how to not have my computer ring. My phone calls are coming through there.
Well, we're not hearing it, so
that's
it's
good.
okay.
I just probably fry like, wow, what's going on? So yeah, and so I think that the other thing is that, just so everybody is aware, we at Power Law, we have free consultations. Like I said, you can come in and with whatever the question, maybe it's something we talked about today, maybe it's unrelated to what we talked about today, but it has to do with your business or real estate or some lawsuit you might find yourself caught up in. We do not do everything here, but we say that this is a great first place to start, because if we aren't the right person to help you with whatever issue, we don't let you walk out that door without giving you some ideas about who the right people might be and what the right resources might be. So our website is powerlawpc.com. You can do web inquiries on there. Our phone number is, do you want me to do that here? 530-576-5740. So we are, even though our offices became essential again today, or authorized, I don't know what the word is, we are still doing mostly phone consultations to the extent that it's reasonable, and we'll open our offices back up for in-office consultations probably starting June 1st. So, and we would love to hear from you too. If you don't really need an attorney, but you just have an idea or a business that you're working on, and you're one of those people who's saying, okay, this thing we're doing right now is kind of rotten, and I'm going to use my downtime to think about another business or a new project that we're working on. We love those kind of clients too. It's a refreshing topic for us to get to talk about, something exciting and new. And there's always plenty of legal considerations in everything you do, and we'd be more than happy to be on your team and making those decisions or those plans going forward.
Yeah, that's great. And you didn't mention, but you do have social media. You have Facebook pages where you're posting, you're keeping things up to date, and is another form for people to communicate if they're not quite ready to make the full step, then start following you on social media
Sure.
and keep up to date with that information as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this was pretty fun.
Yeah.
This was Stacie's first live, and I totally forgot in the beginning to tell everyone that, we might have some technical issues. I sort of blurped out in the beginning. And
I let everybody know it was my first time.
Yeah.
So.
But Stacie's really wonderful. I've really enjoyed getting to know her, and she's super helpful. And so I hope that if you have any questions and you need someone who is kind and trustworthy and down to earth to talk to, they're worth contacting. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for this opportunity. I love seeing you supporting other people in the community and introducing us to one another and sharing your awesome vision with people too. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
All right. And so remember, if you're watching the replay, still continue to post comments, and Stacie will be able to reply to you and answer them and be in touch. And we hope that you're staying well on our Wellness Wednesday, and look forward to seeing you in person when it's safe and allowed. Bye.
Bye-bye.